Namaskar. So I'm most honored to be here today to speak to such a distinguished audience on a day celebrating the address made by a great religious guru, a great thinker, and a great leader. There is an expression in English, rarely used nowadays, about matters temporal, things that relate to time and physical space. Governments generally deal with temporal issues. But the opposite of matters temporal is matters spiritual. These terms, matters temporal and matters spiritual, suggest a difference, a division, a dichotomy between two worlds. But that does not mean that there cannot be a conversation between temporal and spiritual representatives. And I'm here today because of such a conversation, and a conversation about values, when I visited this holy site in June 2018. So I want to thank Swami Vivekananda for inviting me to address this audience today, and in effect to carry on that conversation that we had in June. Most revered Swami Smaranandaji Maharaj and all the other priests here today, an honored guest on the diocese, thank you very much. I am truly honored to be here. It is in fact a little bit daunting to be speaking at such an event. I am not a member of an ancient order of monks, nor can I speak for millions and millions of any people of all classes and sects. I have not lived my life in any way like that of Swami Vivekananda, or indeed of Ramakrishna, the Guru Ramakrishna Paramahamsa himself. However, I was privileged to take part in a celebration of one of Swami Vivekananda's own disciples, that of Sister Nivedita, in Wimbledon in last November, when the Honourable Chief Minister unveiled a plaque on a building in which Sister Nivedita had once lived. And it was at that celebration that I learnt much about the life and teachings of Swamiji. His influence on Margaret Noble, whom he met in Britain and who followed him to India and became Sister Nivedita. And I also heard about the work of the Ramakrishna mission, especially in education. The Ramakrishna mission is just one of many religious organizations represented in Britain. And my country is a multi-confessional society with many groups holding various views, beliefs, and ideas about how we should conduct our lives. In my country, there has been a very extended conversation about how these communities with different beliefs, different practices, and different traditions can live together. But sadly, for all that debate, my country has witnessed some terrible incidents of violence in recent years, and some of the worst acts being committed by people born in the very country. And of course, this very date is the anniversary of the most terrible event of fanaticism, of terrorism in America. Now, as part of the response to these events, the British government formulated a range of strategies for dealing with violence and extremism to try and counter the hate, distrust, and fear, and most importantly, to prevent repetitions of such violence. And as part of that prevent strategy, the government recognized that it needed to set out what united the people of my country, what common values everyone should share and follow, and how to live in peace and security, and which should be at the heart of what entails citizenship of my country. And it was also decided that these common values should be taught in every school as part of the curriculum. So in 2011, the government, the Department for Education, issued guidance that British schools should actively promote fundamental British values. Those values were, or are, because they are still in force, democracy, or described for the children who would learn about it as making decisions together. This is the value that we set in having democratic government, the principle that it is the people who vote and decides who governs. Secondly, the rule of law, or as it was put, understanding that rules matter. And thirdly, individual liberty, or freedom for all. These three values are mutually reinforcing. A democracy cannot function properly if citizens are not able to debate issues and challenge their governments. Freedom of expression is fundamental to the realization of other rights. People cannot protest, form organizations, practice their religion, or access justice if they cannot freely express themselves and speak out against violations of human rights. And with respect to the rule of law, Article 21 of the Constitution of India sets it out very clearly. No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. In these respects, India and Britain share the very same values. Yet it is the one other value that we have adopted that embodies the spirit of Swamiji Vivekananda, and which he set out so eloquently in those words of his address 125 years ago: "I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true." In Britain, we describe this fourth value as mutual respect and tolerance of those with different faiths and beliefs. I have yet to find my colleague in the British Civil Service who formulated those words, but I feel that the spirit of Swamiji was present when they were written. Of course, this fourth value responds to the diversity of British society. You cannot simply set out rights like democracy and personal liberty, and you cannot just set out the fact that people should take responsibility for accepting the rule of law. Something more is needed to bring groups in society together, to overcome, as Swamiji said himself, the uncharitable feelings between persons. But unlike the other three values, I think it is very difficult to legislate for toleration. You can set rules for democracy, urge citizens of a country to follow these rules and sanction those who break them, and put protection of liberty into constitutions. But where do you set the boundaries of tolerance? Perhaps I can explain that by setting out how tolerance and toleration is taught in British schools. It is part of what we call personal, social, and health education, which enables children to become healthy, independent, and responsible members of society, or citizenship as we describe it. And this education is taught in all schools at all ages. But the introduction of the four values tends to be amongst children, 9 to 12-year-old children. And in guidance that was issued last year by my government, this value of mutual respect and tolerance was cast as treating others as you want to be treated. And I think the titles of some of the teaching aids give a good idea of how this value is taught. So let me just give you a few titles to give you a sense of what we think the values within tolerance are. We are all different. In someone else's shoes. Respecting different opinions. What makes a good listener? Identifying feelings. These behaviors and skills of listening to others, of identifying our own and others' emotions, of respecting others' opinions are challenging to acquire, as I know only too well as an adult, as a parent, even as a diplomat. Developing these skills and habits takes much effort. We are of human flesh and we are often weak. We try to live up to ideals, but it can be hard. Most revered President Maharaj, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this event and giving me the opportunity to explain the importance that my government gives to tolerance. Communities cannot live by laws alone. There needs to be conversation between communities within a society, groups, between individuals about difference, about acceptance, about shared values, about living together on this planet. This may be relatively new to the British government, but it is not, of course, for the Ramakrishna mission and its great founder. And to repeat the words of Swami Vivekananda of 125 years ago, as the different streams having their sources in different places all mingle their water in the sea, so, O Lord, the different paths which men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, all lead to thee. Thank you very much for your attention.